Well, first impression is you're all very busy people, but with a passion for sustainability. So really great that we've been able to gather together. Okay, let's get going, shall we? I'd love to start by asking you this. Who in your organization is driving compliance with the new reporting requirements, and which job functions tend to be involved? I'll just pop that in the chat so you can all consider it. But once more, who is driving compliance with the new reporting requirements, and which functions are involved? I'd love to know. Robin, could we kick off with you on this one, please?
Unmute. Yeah, for us, the compliance and the reporting side is driven by corporate EHS&S.
Okay, so you've got a dedicated department for that. How is that working for you? Has it always been that way, or has that been a relatively new thing since these further compliance reporting requirements were introduced?
Well, I'm not the only one that's only been with a company for a year. So I've only been with Nidec for a year, so that's how it's always been here. But keep in mind, because we've got 18 manufacturing plants in the US, but our biggest stuff is done in Italy. We are well ahead because of our Italian manufacturing and our French and some other countries that we've done over there. You know, for example, in Italy, we're already better than it's either 53 or 57% all renewable. And we've done things to source the metals and the material closer so that they're shorter distances. So we actually have, it's tough to imagine that a motor that's 2 stories tall would actually be really quite sustainable. But the carbon footprints on that stuff is actually very small. A lot of it has to do with sourcing and how they've gone about it. But the actual tracking would be corporate EHS&S.
Okay, that's good to know. Thanks so much, Robin. We'll talk in a bit more detail about how that links back in with what you guys do in a little bit. For now, though, let's come over to you, please, Law, because obviously moving from the what Robin was talking about there, it's not too dissimilar to what you guys do around the tools and services for construction side of things. So could you tell me a bit about who's driving compliance over at your organization?
So there's various, actually it's quite distributed. So we have a dedicated department for compliance in general and for legal and regulation compliance that is based in our global location. And this is quite a long existing department because of where we sell, basically. So we sell and send a lot of products that are classified as dangerous, like batteries, chemical products, and all those kind of products. So having that kind of department was actually a necessity, especially when we send or sell solutions in the US, in the Nordic countries in Europe, and in France. Also, we got some requests and some special regulation when it comes to chemical products in Meta, for example, or in Asia. So having that kind of department is absolutely a necessity. Lately, so 5 years ago, we have a special team for sustainability. The beginning of the task for them was really to drive awareness across the group, because even data-wise, we were not very savvy about what was actually our status and how to monitor it, what to monitor, what kind of targets we would have, that kind of things. So we have a dedicated team in global that is really completely accountable for sustainability topic. And when it comes to sustainability definition, we take it as both internal and operational sustainability in the headquarters. There was sustainability in the local market organizations, and also the sustainability in terms of contribution to the construction industry. So construction industry being quite a huge contributor to CO2 emissions. There's quite a lot that we can do to also better partner with the customers. So we have this global team that also has 10 counterparts locally to help them also roll out every understanding, data management, and also our strategy.
Mm. That's really, really interesting and great to kind of see the timeline of how things have evolved and the focus on sustainability is becoming more of a priority. Jerome, I'd love to know from your side of things, this contribution to the industry and society on improving carbon emissions. Is that similarly a priority over at Electrolux? And how are you managing the ESG? How are you managing the driving compliance and new reporting requirements over there?
Sure. Yeah, I think what Laura is explaining is quite closely linked to what we are doing. It's we don't have these big industrial setups in terms of end products that we produce, right? It's consumer products that we are working with. So that is the closer link to what Laura is explaining. And then linking back to what Robert said, it's a long-standing regulations that we have to make sure that we explain and are compliant to the use of materials. And that is why we have had for at least 2 decades a department which was called Environmental Affairs, and that is really the compliance part of the business linked to sustainability. But prior to that being a huge topic, it was like Laura was saying, it's everything that's got to do with chemicals. We have the so-called ROHS regulation, so the ban on certain substances that we cannot use, and this is constantly updated for us, for the European Union, right? And that is something that needs to be monitored very closely. So that is the core focus of that team, and they work in that sense independently from the sustainability department, who are much more let's say communication oriented on how are we explaining what to consumers, customers, investors, etc. Okay. And that is really closely linked to the legal department, who are having a big say in that, because what we see now, and again just 2 days ago there was a big article on the new the anti-greenwash regulation. So that's also every 6 months there's different rules to live up to. So that is why legal is always involved in whatever we say and communicate about our products, to make sure that it's also forward-looking, if it's compliant with what it is that we can say, because the standard terms like environmentally friendly are, since 2 days, are not allowed anymore, right? To make that, to put that in communication. So that is a struggle, and that's, I would say, the 3 main areas where back to your question, the environmental affairs department is key in compliance from a let's say production point of view, but not in the communications point of view. That's more legal and sustainability teams.
Yeah, so it's really a 3-pronged approach to be able to handle all of the data, the monitoring and compliance side of things. Really interesting. Thanks so much. Emilio, let's hear from you on this. Any thoughts on what we've heard so far, how it compares with what they do over at GEA, and tell me a bit about where compliance sits over at your organization.
In that sense, it's similar to what Robin or Jerome have been expressing before. Well, we are more in a bigger industry sector, in manufacturing side, and we also do a lot of projects. So we have established a sustainability measurement already from 2017, and issued reporting directly to the CEO in our company. So our sustainability head, Aline Sterley, she has built up a sustainability strategy across the company, covering from the sales side, from the product management side, to monitor and to report, to make visible to our customers what is the sustainability impact of the products and services that we sell. And then from that one, we came also internally to the sustainable operations, where we try to reduce the environmental impact of the way we manufacture and we deliver our products. So from places where basically we are doing significant investments in recycling water or solar panels for our factories, to charging parking places, and then down to deeper analysis of the water and the consumption that our products have to our customers through the life cycle of the product. We have very broad range of products. Some of them are built up for lasting 30, 50 years. Some others are for 3-4 years. And obviously the impact changes a lot. So we try to measure carefully what is the impact in manufacturing itself, but also how it will be for our customer when we sell plants or homogeneous machines or valves and pumps to Coca-Cola, Heineken, or any of our customers. We want them to know, okay, this is what it takes to build up the product that we are delivering to you, what has been the impact so far, and also during the lifetime, how it is going to be impacting in your production chain.
Yeah, that was so interesting, Emilio, and it really reminds me back to what Law was saying about the process and having to communicate not only to your internal customers and the manufacturers, but also to the external customers as well. Tusha, you mentioned in the beginning, sustainability, of course, highly relevant in the plastics industry, and there's a huge focus on ESG reporting. You did say that it's often viewed as the last step. Has that been flipped on its head now? And if you could tell me a bit about the reporting requirements within your organization too and where they sit, that would be great.
Yeah. So in terms of your questions, so who is responsible for compliance of ESG reporting and who is involved? So in the past, when ESG reporting was more voluntary, so our communications department used to be responsible for that, to kind of prepare this market-oriented sustainability report. But since now we have regulations from EU, from UK, from different geographies, that was an interesting discussion within the company. So which department should be responsible for this? Because now you also have a financial reporting angle into that in terms of EU taxonomy, for example. So should the finance department be responsible for this? Or environment being the biggest piece of data, should the operations department be responsible? So ultimately, it was decided that the global sustainability department, where I sit, should be responsible to coordinate with all the teams responsible to provide the data. And so specifically speaking, so my job role is responsible for all these compliant ESG reporting. And which job functions are involved? So as I said, the biggest data that we have to report is coming from operations, being the environmental data. Then we have human resources department talking about the S aspect of ESG. Then we have big piece coming from procurement about sustainable value chains. And lastly, we have ethics and compliance. That's the G part of ESG. So these are, in a nutshell, the teams responsible for now. But in future, once EU taxonomy is coming in force, we will also have our finance, especially the controlling teams, who will be helping us to do the ESG reporting.
Okay, wow, that's spread across so many teams, really hitting home about just how vital this is for business continuity. And just let's come to you on this. Appreciate you've been in the role for 1 year, but tell us about, where compliance and reporting requirements sit over at about Festo.
Yeah, at Festo, this system belongs to EHS department, so the system is very different what Tashar said before. So this, how to say, the energy usage is reported mostly based on the operational units, and so we have to declare some counteractions how we can reduce the energy. For example, the electricity usage, like using the compressed air system in the weekends and so on. And as I mentioned, there is a big effort to reach the zero carbon emission till 2025. So we have already set a lot of solar panels onto the roof, and we will change the heating system from the natural gas based system to this, how to say, this heat sucking pump system in the future. So it is a very strong intention from Festo headquarters.
Just one more question. Obviously, Emilio ran us through, who is driving compliance with these new reporting requirements that we find upon ourselves. Would you say, although being in different geographies, the picture is quite the same?
No, for sure it's not. So there's a big variation in the requirements that we are facing. I think in the European Union, it's quite strict, and it's getting stricter and stricter. Some countries have started already with their national things. I think in Norway and in Finland, we have things comparable to the German Supply Chain Act. Also in Canada, I think we have quite a strict regulation on human rights. So there are a couple of countries in the world who are introducing laws and regulations like that. But at least for me, it feels like it's pretty much focused to the European Union for the time being.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you so much for clarifying. Great to have you with us. All right, well, Sophie, it's been a long time since we heard from you, and I can't wait to get your thoughts on this. It seems to be a really mixed bag about where these reporting requirements, responsibilities fit. And actually, it's quite a multi-pronged approach for most organizations. Does that tend to be what you see?
Definitely. I would say historically, if I look at the last 15 to 20 years that I'm working in that sector, I would say that actually whenever there was a need, the more or less the department which was closest to the need, there was like a sustainability responsible person generated. I would say it like that, and that's also what we have seen in the past years, that it has grown somehow organically. The whole thing, like it popped up, right? But in the past years, since as we already heard, the regulations get stricter and stricter, and it is really now influencing the business strategy in many ways, in many different ways. Most of the companies we're working with are tending to somehow organize it a bit more and get one central person, which is also very close to the C level, or even in the C level, to organize it throughout the levels, to avoid the scattering of things, scattering of topics, and to avoid that you're not working with the same, data with the same meaning behind it, and to make a bit more a holistic picture out of it. Yeah, but definitely it was very demand driven at least in the years before COVID, if we could say it like that.
Okay, fascinating stuff. Thank you. Thank you all for a really interesting start. Let's delve a little bit deeper, if that's okay. We've been looking sort of at how things have changed over the years in terms of where reporting and sustainability lies in the organization. But what about looking ahead? If I can ask you all to look into your crystal balls and cast your mind to 3 years in the future. I know this is the hardest possible thing to do, but let's give it a whirl. How do you see your organization changing business practices to create the improvements you want to make? So a lot of you discussed there, carbon net zero. What do you see realistically changing in 3 years' time? And what business practices have to change in order to be able to get there. Sebastian, you joined us a little bit later, so I'd like to come to you first, if that's okay, and get some more thoughts.
Of course. So as you said, it's super hard to predict what's going to happen. So I've started with what I'm doing roughly 2 years ago at GEA. And even in these 2 years, the journey got so much pace, and more or less all weeks there are new things incoming. So pretty hard to predict now a 3 years horizon. Nonetheless, let's give it a try. So most probably we will bear the fruits of what we're implementing today. So the last 2 years have been about setting strategy, defining our CO2 reduction targets, establishing the teams, and defining roles and responsibilities. And now last year, but also this year, we really come into the doing of things. And whenever I give you an answer, it might be a little bit in the upstream direction of a company, because that's my function. But to give you an example, what we do is we evaluate the sustainability performance of our suppliers. So we look into the main ESG assessments, you name them, Integrity Next and EcoVadis and Prewave, etc., etc. There are a lot of out there at the moment. And we are taking the scores and we are discussing these scores with our suppliers. So we ask them, get one of the main ESG assessments, get good scores there, improve over the years, rating by rating, and show that you are supporting our journey to more sustainability. And at the moment, it's a dialogue that we're having, but nonetheless, we are also asking more and more to really be compliant with these requirements and achieve good scores in the sustainability ratings. And we're implementing these results in our supplier selection process. So with a look into our supplier base, I expect that we will have a more sustainable supplier base than we have it today, because we develop the suppliers with a good sustainability performance and also shift spend from suppliers with a weaker sustainability performance in the direction of the stronger ones. That's for sure one main pillar when it comes to the supplier selection. And when we talk about the decarbonization, I'm pretty optimistic that we see the results in the CO2 numbers when we talk about the implementation of the measures that we are developing at the moment. And maybe to measure it, last point is to be more specific, more accurate in the CO2 emission accounting. As many companies do at the moment, we do a lot of reporting spend-based. So based on our spend that we have, we calculate CO2 emissions. And we shift now step by step to asking our suppliers for CO2 emissions. So if you send a motor to GEA, what's the CO2 emissions behind? And same on the other end of the supply chain. Our customers are asking, hey, GEA, what's the CO2 emissions of the, separator that we are purchasing of you? And I'm pretty confident that we could provide this kind of data in future.
Wow, that's a lot to achieve in 3 years, but sounds like you're well on your way there, Sebastian. Thank you. I love that you're holding your suppliers to account as well in order to be able to offer improvements across the board. Emilio, it makes sense to come to you next, given you're in the same organization. Do you see a similar view looking ahead? What do you think?
For us, the good thing is that Sebastian is driving more the strategy in connection with the sustainability leadership in GEA, as I said before, reporting to our CEO. For us, basically what we try to do is to bring as much transparency as possible to data. So as Sebastian was explaining before, bringing first the analysis based on spend, but then double click on that one and say, okay, it's not only the spend, but actually the materials that we are buying from our suppliers, or the services that they are providing, how they are providing those services. And make sure that it's not just assumptions or calculations based on data, but really that we measure properly the impact of our suppliers into the products and the services that we deliver to our customers. I was in a meeting a few weeks back with a colleague from Unilever. She was also in the digitalization and sustainability area, and actually the effort that all the procurement organizations and supply chains we have to put in monitoring what our suppliers are doing and how do they work is a huge effort, which is not reflected anywhere. Procurement and supply chain are measured on the traditional KPIs, but obviously this needs to start to be visible in the reports, because at some point in time, you can get very cheap supplies from anybody in the middle of Africa or Mozambique, but if finally you end up in the newspapers because you are polluting a river, all those savings are gone, because basically you're losing the market. So we are starting from that side, but we need to go forward in depth about the impact of what our suppliers are doing.
Okay, that's really interesting. Thanks ever so much, Emilio. Jerome, let's come to you next. Is supplier carbon compliance as vital to you? Is that something you're focusing on? And do you think it will impact the outlook for the next 3 years?
Yeah, there's these 3 phases, right? The scope 1, 2, and 3 that tends to be divided to understand the carbon output, and so the part where we look at our suppliers is scope 1 and 2 together with our own production. So in the past years, this is where we have been focusing a lot. If we look at our production processes, there's vast reductions in emissions, to such an extent that over the life cycle of our product, on average, 80% of the CO2 emissions come actually from the in-use phase, which is also called scope 3. So the impact of looking to our suppliers versus the use phase, so to our consumers, because we work with consumer goods, the impact that we can realize there is actually fourfold. It's much greater there. So that is actually what we started since 23, since last year, to focus a lot on. And we're bringing this together from a marketing point of view as well, where we have the production elements, standard things like the energy consumption. But what we're focusing a lot on is actually to close the green gap, right? Where consumers say, oh yeah, we want to use products in a very efficient way, and we want to buy and use energy efficient products, but actually we either don't know how, or it's too expensive, or it's too complicated. And our goal is here to make that always easier. It's a low effort way of getting our products in use to be very energy efficient. So not only on an energy label, but actually in reality. And just as an example, right, it's you can cook in many ways, but we know that cooking with steam is the most energy efficient way because of the heat transfer. So you save 20% when you cook with steam. But what you also can do with steam is regenerate food leftovers, which means that we are also targeting food waste, not anti-food waste. But we're targeting food to reduce food waste, and so we are actually not so much looking to the downstream part, but rather how can we in the 10 or 15 years that the consumer has our product, how can we be of help there? So in that sense, it's quite different from depending probably on the industry. Yeah? If you're a consumer product organization, you will focus more on there, because we've already made such big improvements in our production processes.
Yeah, that's really admirable and great that your products are lasting that long as well. And as for the
As an example.
As a comment on the steam thing as well, obviously that's a much healthier way to cook, so it's a win-win. Laura, let's come over to you. One of the last things you said before was that you needed to do more to partner with clients. Do you think then that is going to be sort of one way that things might change or improve over the next 3 years? And feel free to mention others.
So partnering with clients, given that we're in B2B, it's like the long history of Hilti. So it's not. I mean, everything we've done was actually, in general, a very strong customer pool. So, for example, global accounts that are asking for specific data that we also want to go on the business with them, so we have to give it. So that was like a necessary step also for the survival of our business, and I think it's also a part of it. Then we wanted to be also proactive, knowing how the society was evolving as well. So this is why we started this journey quite ahead. Then a bit about what I've heard. I think we're very. I was hearing about Sebastian when it comes to sustainability topics with suppliers and requests that are basically pulled by customers, and this I could really relate. This is really something that I've seen. And going ahead for the group, so basically everything that was based on gathering the data, knowing where we want to go, quick wins that we could do from headquarters, all those things we've already done, basically. And we are more into the implementation phase now of the strategy. And basically, we all have targets from the business unit side in the global side, but also from every market organizations to be reached. So all of this right now, we're really into reaching those targets, like what are the steps to reach it. And this is really from the group perspective. Now, if I talk about my side, which I'm in the very lower part of the pyramid in the global headquarter here. How does it translate? Is basically we have limitations and quick wins that are those quick wins we're tackling already. And then we have a strong assessment on, okay, do we have the technology at hand to actually produce differently what we're producing? Is it really bringing value in terms of sustainability? Because sometimes it looks nice on one side, but then in the end, it doesn't have a bigger impact. And then also assessing what would be the business impact. So do we take it on our profit or our margins, or do we translate it to the customers in the end whenever we have this higher cost? All those trade-offs on my range is typically what I would do. So checking at if we go from gas production to electric-based production, what would be the impact on the cost and the impact on the sales price? Are we ready to do it from a technology point of view? Will it help us in terms of quantity? Because we also have some quantity levels to still reach to serve the business. So all of these things are things that I discuss with my teams and my colleagues from the other departments, and that we drive together. So we're really in the step where already the lower base of the pyramid, we are all working together to try to reach those objectives already.
Yeah, great stuff. Sounds like you're in a fantastic position, Law. And something you said, I wanted to ask you, Andras, about, have we got the technology in place and is it bringing value? I'm sure you're all approached with all these shiny new tools that promise X, Y, Z. Is that a big consideration for you, Andras, as you look ahead to the next 3 years?
Yes, regarding this carbon issue, as I mentioned, so we have a strong intention. So regarding this supply chain, Festo status is a little bit easier because we purchase the parts basically from other Festo companies. So they have the same intention what we have currently. Yes, regarding this carbon issue is also followed up by the headquarters, and the data is shared within the Festo companies. Yeah, regarding the next 3 years, just an interesting item that the new Festo plants doesn't have the Festo plants don't have natural gas heating system. So we focused just to the solar panels and the heat sucking system. So it would be easier in the future.
Okay, that's great to know. Something positive as we move towards the net zero in 2025. Tushar, coming to you then, what do you see in your crystal ball when you look ahead to the next 3 years? What needs to change?
Yeah, and that's $1 million question, especially for European businesses currently. I mean, all these regulations coming up, and I think Sebastian really summarized them, all those alphabets, CSRD, we have EU taxonomy, CSDDD, CBAM, so on and so forth. What I think, I mean, it's not possible to correctly predict, but what I can speculate is all these regulations will really make sustainability performance comparable, at least for the European businesses. And they will do same what the International Financial Reporting Standards did for the financial performance comparison. Because until now, the sustainability reporting was mostly based on voluntary standards like GRI, for example. So it was not really possible to compare performance of two companies. But when we have, for example, CSRD in place, anyone with access to data, which will be public, can look at two competitors and compare their sustainability performance. And I think this will really push companies to be more sustainable. Because these regulations are also going to force companies to, or not force, but rather encourage to publish targets on sustainability. And then if my competitor is publishing targets, publishing progress on the targets, then that also puts pressure on me. And I think as a result within the company, again, there will be more push on actually improving sustainability performance, not only on those typical programs such as decarbonization, but also far-reaching sustainability. For example, let's take example of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So under CSRD, companies will have to report DEI numbers. So if a company does not have DEI program internally, then we don't have the numbers, good numbers to publish. So I think these kind of effects there will be within 3 to 4 years once CSRD is in place.
Yeah, and if it means you're going to lose out on business to the competitor, it's something that is absolutely vital on this journey. Let's come over to you, Robin. Do you see this, potential of losing out to competitors if your sustainability performance isn't top notch? And you already mentioned that you had over 50% renewable statistics, which is awesome. What do you see as the next steps on the journey as you look ahead to improving further?
Well, yeah, to comment on a couple of things like Lori said and a few other folks, data is king, and and I've worked with a bunch of organizations who've already started down this path. You have to be able to track your basically your inputs and your outputs of your energy and your other resources. You have to be able to track that, because you cannot validate that a project actually reduced anything unless you've got baseline data to support it. You can't identify hotspots that need to be addressed without it. You can't do the financial analysis required to figure out whether this works or it doesn't. So how you compare, for example, in very large motors, there's no one that can touch NEDC on a sustainability number, right? And from a ESG score. But what you do to obtain that score still has to be financially justified against the business that you expect to either win or lose. And you're right, the regulations are going to come down, and it'll be a much more standardized deal. It'll just be like GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles with financial terms. But you're going to have to know how that lies financially, because let's just for a minute, let's entertain, you're talking about 3 years, right? But we're 6 years away from 2030. what happens to the companies that have spent an untold fortune to get really good ESG scores? And then in 2030, when we don't hit the 50% reduction in carbon, you'll have companies that didn't hit the 50% reduction, but along the same lines, you'll have a planet that has not yet burst into flames, right? Because remember that you're competing against manufacturers and producers in India and China where none of this applies. And so the question then becomes, will you be penalized in the stock market or by your shareholders when you've spent way too much money without enough financial gain? And this is why data, and the nice thing about it is you can collect all of your energy inputs. You can add to that PFAS, because those chemicals they're gaining momentum in the regulatory side. Now I'm just speaking about North America. But you have the ability, if you spend wisely, you can justify more things. If you compare natural gas to electricity, what other processes, what other symbiotic processes do you have in your facility that would benefit by the waste heat from the gas burning? Is it possible that natural gas with redeployed waste heat is actually financially better and puts you in a better carbon footprint, right? Because if you really get into the math, now, granted, I'm a certified energy manager, so math is my thing. But if you get into the real nuts and bolts of the math and really grind it down, there are times where you will not benefit in the long term when you make what seems like a really good idea, right? I can speak to even my past employer. We haven't had a solar panel array ever hit break even in under 31 years. Yet, right, and the U.S. Department of Energy has pointed out that solar really only generates 25% of what it's rated for, right? So if you get into what is real production, and in the case of Wisconsin, how much of the time will the panels be under snow? When you do all that math, you may come up with, we can get great carbon wins, we can get great ESG scores, and we can even increase our productivity, our quality, and our profitability. But you can do it in ways that may, in fact, make you much stronger over the long haul. Because there's a lot of, my sister-in-law bought a thing that's supposed to reduce her energy consumption at home by 50%. Well, it's a capacitor, but it's not going to do that. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors, just like with data management, because you were talking about what kind of new shiny toys. Well, you'll have companies that'll come by with, we can track 60,000 data points. Well, you don't need 60,000. What you need to be able to do is aggregate across all of your facilities, right? What's really going on. And there's far less that you have to do. There's the funnel of data that comes in, but the data that has to be processed. And is it worth spending twice as much money to have a nice graphics panel when most people just drop the numbers into Excel? So there's a lot going on, and it's only going to accelerate. And with the increased scrutiny on the laws and greenwashing, I forget who it was, but somebody you can't just put down energy efficient, right? Because we can say I'm energy efficient because I'm aero and hydrodynamic, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm better than you folks that have lovely heads of hair. I'll be quiet now.
I think you raised some really, really valuable points that I think others want to react and respond to. First, Sophie, I'm going to come to you. I'd love to hear what you've heard from the whole group, and then how you feel about this kind of trade-off between, spending all the money to hit the target, but equally not having, a robust business case looking ahead because you haven't quite got there.
Yeah. So, as you know, Makersite is actually one of these shiny new softwares, which promises to work with 60,000 data points or more, actually even much more. So I'm actually also a data person, right? And I've worked with data all my business life. So my answer will be very data driven. What we have seen with our customers is that they're coming with, oh my God, we need to understand our products. We need to understand it by scale. We can't just focus on some examples and hope that that's fine, right? That comes back to what Robin also said. You can't just say something without the data. And they come on scope 3, they come on LCA, they come on compliance, they come on like all the different things which already have been mentioned from the group, right? And what actually we do at Makersite, and what I also see that the next 3 years will definitely bring is twofold. So we'll take all the data which are already there in the company, okay? But we structure them in a way, we make this digital twin so that you actually really know and understand what your products are with the data that you have, right? What are your products doing? What are they compliant? Yes or no? What is the product carbon footprint over my product portfolio with what you already have? And most of the companies have such scattered data in different systems that they actually don't know what they have. Right? That's like I haven't worked yet with any customer where there was not this moment where they discovered what they already have, right? And the cool thing is when you have an overview of what you have, you can be much more focused on, for example, the supplier requests we already had, right? That's a big thing for the future. That's coming like with the CS triple D. I'm sorry, I'm so bad with the abbreviations because they get more and more. So and CSRD, you have to actually know your data. If you don't know your data, I am pretty sure you will lose business. So I am absolutely conform with the group here at that point. And the cool thing is, if you know your data, you know exactly where it makes sense to ask your customers, right? And you can focus more on the products which actually will have some improvements, and you can do some sorting process where you say these are okay for the moment, these are the ones which maybe in 5 years, and these are the ones which I really have to care for, these are the suppliers which I have to talk for. And that brings a lot of efficiency, because if you're just doing it on a broad scale and just pulling out the requests, that's like an overwhelming task, at least in my mind, right? So that brings a lot of clarity. Yeah.
If I may, Sophie, two things. Companies that have tried to collect the data or who are really on board, everybody's at least tried it 2 other times, and they've got remnants of the old systems laying around. And the other thing is, what you have to be able to couple the data to is an AI engine that can drill down and figure out, okay, of all of these data points, it's when these 2 go high that something else happens that's wrong, because AI will give you the insight to look at all these data points and actually figure out what are the step changes that you can have. Right? Because you want to get to the next level of manufacturing. Well, you may not be able to see that until you have the data. And AI gives you a way to do that, right?
Yeah. That's exactly what we do, basically. So thanks for that. Yes. And that's actually also what I foresee in the future, is that companies will have to dig into their data and get their data straight, to be honest, and to be quite honest with you, because if you don't do, and I have seen that in the past years, that all the developments have been very like customer driven, meaning that if there was a lot of pressure of one customer group or a customer, then this had been done, right, without thinking about the cost. Of course, there was some trade-off, but basically you just did it to hold the customer. And if you do that over the next year, that will kill your business, basically. So you have to have your strategy based on a good data foundation. I think the next 3 years will show who can do that and who can't, basically. And if you have the data right, then all the strategy you planned and all the money you put in the different corners of your business, then you can track actually if that makes sense or not, right? So that's what I hope to see in the next 3 years, that the strategies built by companies are actually based on a data foundation. So that's where I'm coming back to and agreeing to what Robin is saying, basically. Yeah.
Great, thank you both. Lots of you giving knowing nods. I wondered if any points had sparked interest from the rest of you that you wanted to chime in with. Tushar, is that
Great. I was smiling inside and also nodding a lot when Robin and Sophie were speaking. I mean, this whole topic of data for sustainability, that's so crucial. I see that in my job role, as well as I see with the other group companies. So my company is part of a bigger chemicals group, which has in total 20 companies. Everyone is facing the same challenge of data. So we looked at a lot of reporting solutions for sustainability, and they are nice solutions, but somehow we still have to bring the data to the reporting solution. And as Sophie, you mentioned, so the data is there, but it is scattered. It is in n number of different IT systems. So many systems are old. There are still Excels and SharePoints and share drives. So it's really a big challenge to bring that data first to identify what data we have. Is it the right data? And then to bring it to a central location and then feed it to the reporting tool. We also have a lot of challenges with respect to how the data is collected. For example, in a chemical plant, we still have a technician walking around with a paper board, writing down readings and then bringing it back to the office. Probably at the end of the month, entering the data in the system, which is not going to fly in the future. So we have all those legacy challenges, and whenever we try to ask for budget or approval for a reporting tool, we always get this question from the decision makers that how can we approve budget for a reporting tool if we do not have the data in place? So that's the biggest challenge I see, at least in the chemical industry that I work.
Yeah, understood. I'm sure you're not alone in that as well. Andres, were you going to chime in there? Sorry, I hope I didn't interrupt you.
So yes, in the next 3 years, what we need, I fully agree with Robin and Tusha. So regarding this data collection is very, very important, and the up-to-date data collection. Not only the collection, but the evaluation is also very very necessary in the future. And also the importance of the AI is also essential. I think, basically I just listen to you because I learn a lot of interesting things. So yeah, from my side, basically, currently that's it.
Oh, really pleased to hear that. That's what we like to do. Laura, Jerome, anything to add here before we move on?
Yeah, so...
Laura, take it away and Jerome will come to you after.
Okay. Yeah, so when it comes to data management, so of course, I mean, any business decision is based on data, right? So it's like anytime we have an idea, first is how much is this invest, and does it really bring value? And if it doesn't bring value in the short term, will it bring value in the midterm or in the long run? So there's all this thinking behind. And when it comes to sustainability, as a product manager, if I have an idea or a request from a customer or a project that runs in a good direction to my mind, I will have to assess it and to assess what will it bring for our company and for our targets. And so I don't have access to those data, for example. But typically what we would do as product managers is relying on the sustainability team and say, hey, we have this project. How do you assess it in terms of sustainability? Is it really bringing what we need in terms of targets or not? Do we have all the data points you need to assess it, to tell us if it's a green, a yellow, complete red project? And like all this comes into the development project and the research that we are doing. So that's a necessary step. What we are changing in terms of data and also relationship between product management and sustainability is basically embedding necessary checks of in different gates of development of the project to assess the ideas. So we have now in our processes in development, some checkpoint with sustainability teams. We have also in marketing, for example, I have to also assess what would be the messaging around this sustainability aspect. So we have a whole pile of processes that is increasing. Those processes are not decreasing, but a whole process behind product development and innovation research that keep in touch with people that can properly assess it, because I mean, in the product team, so we have engineering, we have product management and so on. None of us has this high view and the data point and knowledge to actually assess if what we are doing is in the right direction overall, because we can have a good idea that seems good, like, okay, I want green steel in my products. Yeah, that's good. That's brilliant. We have engineers working on it, checking that it works and so on. And then we would have the, okay, how do we supply it? Do we have the right supply setup? And then we have the question of our supply comes from this country, but we sell most of what we are selling in the other countries. So we have to adapt to account for the transportation. Then we have, but then this product will live less inside the building. So then they will have to change it more often, like every 5 years instead of every 50 years or something like this. And all those considerations at a pure local level, we don't have. It's only really like the sustainability team that really will tell us if we really have the data and if we need more and if it's good enough.
Sharon, may I jump into it just quickly before? Sorry for that. But what I just wanted to mention is not that I don't say that you don't have to assess things, right? Everyone is assessing a new product or something like that before it gets out in the market. Nevertheless, what I have seen is that sometimes the time of how long it takes to assess it and the time the customer gives it to react, that's two different buckets, right? And that's something which has to be changed, right? You have to be much faster in assessing the product, and there has to be some way that you don't have to be always like back and front with all the different departments, but that you can assess it by yourself with one data truth. That's exactly what we are trying to deliver, right? So because that is just more time efficient, because if you always have to go back and front, I mean, I have in my career, I have been accompanying these projects quite a lot, and they usually take a half a year, something like that. And in the end, it's like already the C-level who is jumping in and saying, hey, we need a decision on that thing, right? And everyone is working high pressure to get that thing done. And I just think that this is a situation which is not very efficient for anything, basically. And that's something which has to be done differently in the future to save like everyone's capacities. Let's say it like that. So sorry, I didn't want to like stomp on anyone's feet. I just want to say that this is just a way which is not sustainable. Yeah, sorry. Sorry for jumping in. Thank you, Sharon.
No, not at all. That's what we're here for. Jerome, let's come to you, and then Robin, right over to you after.
Yeah, well, talking about this data-driven approach, and this is really what we follow as well. But I have to be agreeing with what a lot of us are saying, right? That we are on the receiving end in our roles often on this data, and it is a matter that we should trust the people who do this analysis, right? That we say, okay, this is 100% correct, and that is our starting point, right? From where we go. So, but given the fact that we have that data, and I think we are not bad at gathering the data, and also the level of details. We make this what we call the life cycle assessments. So what we see from production to the in use to recycling and all these steps, they have let's say a complete breakdown per product and even per country where it is in use, because the energy mix per country is different. So also the impact in different realities, or countries' realities are different, right? Or in the Nordics, for example, the level of like geothermal energy or hydro energy is much higher than with us. There, the effect of the energy consumption at a consumer's house is impacting less. So it's to that level of detail that we have assessed all these elements, and based on that, coupled with the science-based targets that we follow, we are quite confident that what we see is actually what is the truth. But I fully agree with Sophie saying it takes ages for these things to be evaluated, and of course every time you change something in manufacturing or in your supplier or in the efficiency of a product, you actually have to redo it. Still we work on averages because of the sheer magnitude of different products that we have. So it's per product group that we try to harness this data and also drive it, because we know with all these different elements, we also know which are things that move the needle, right? It can be the use of materials, recycled materials or virgin materials versus what we call honest materials, like stainless steel versus laminated steel, which you cannot recycle, basically. So that all these things are taken into consideration. So it is very interesting to have this discussion also on quality of data coupled with speed, because I think that is actually a very good point that a lot of companies can learn still from, and how to insert this data when certain elements change.
Absolutely. So many fascinating points coming out. Thank you all. Robin, please, over to you.
Sure. Just a quick suggestion, because I'm a power guy, but at one point I was responsible for more AI software sales than the executive salespeople assigned to selling software. And here's perhaps for you as well, a valuable hint that can use it. Find energy savings projects that will have a high ROI, right? A good return on investment that break even quickly, like the quick ones that Laura was talking about. But if you include in the cost of what you need to do that project, even if it's just a couple of data or one or two data points that allow you to prove that you've made the win that you want, what that allows you to do is talk to your CFO or however you get the financial group, because a couple of things. One, if you make a product that you can demonstrate is in fact more sustainable, that does have a lower carbon footprint, that allows you to gain more margin or footprint in the market that you're selling into. If you talk to the finance people and you start to have them build an account that shows, okay, we're going to make 0.25% more on this product because it's more sustainable. We're going to reduce our energy cost by X, right? Which is money. And what you'll find generally is that you can use your energy savings to pay for the software and the AI investment, which is a whole lot fuzzier, right? If you reduce your actual consumption and your actual paid cost, that is a hard, tangible amount. And if you start getting that savings assigned to your sustainability budget, this is how very interesting companies that were very opposed to it wound up spending millions on AI. And it's the AI that gives you the next leap in advancement. But you can, if you get the CFO to start assigning those savings, those aggregated savings to what you want to do in sustainability, you'll wind up being able to drive the train wherever you want it to go.
Great thoughts there, Robin. Thank you. And you lead us on nicely to talk a bit about the product development and lifecycle management piece, which I was hoping we would have a bit more time on. We've only got 10 minutes left, so let's quick fire this one. I wonder if this question is particularly pertinent to you, you could perhaps raise your hand. So I come to the people with the most knowledge on it. But what I want to know, I've just popped it in the chat, is what's broken in your stage gate process from a sustainability perspective, and what product lifecycle management investments would you make to fix it? I was thinking, Laura and Jerome, this was more your bag, but please prove me wrong if this is something you're particularly passionate or about or involved in the group.
Yes, so I'm actually, we're doing exactly this. So we have this gate process development of products, and then on the other side, as a product manager, I'm also in charge of the life cycle of my range, right? So it's also making some choices. So basically, when it comes to just the care of my portfolio, there are some hard choices in terms of business to do. If we see that some products are just in the wrong direction and not supporting us in our strategy, even if it's a loss of business, then there's an approval, of course, mitigation of the risk, also everything that goes with the management on why we do it, why I recommend such a move or that kind of things. So there's always that kind of aspects where we can say, okay, this product doesn't help us in our strategy. So either we'll let it die and don't invest in it anymore, or we have a new generation of it, or we have already a solution in place which will help us drive it faster. When it comes to product development processes, I would say it didn't change radically what we were doing, the sustainability targets. What changed was mostly our collaboration across departments. So, for example, we always have a review on the quality of the product. The checklist of the quality manager has now additional checklist when it comes to checking that we have the right packaging, checking that we have the right setup in the plant that is sustainable, that kind of things. We also have a packaging briefing. So here, for example, very late example, I'm creating a new article, very basic article that doesn't need a lot of development. But going to the packaging team, then they were saying, okay, we know it's a basic article. We know you don't want to have a high cost on this one, but we will not accept plastic-based packaging. So you will have this kind of difference in the packaging. This is all the options you have. You can check with also who can pack it and where and how you can arrange it with the plant and with the supply manager. But this is how it goes. Like it's not even, let's say, a choice. Basically, each of the departments have their own targets and their own guidance that goes in the same direction. So basically, we have options, and we have options that are simply no-go and that will not be accepted. And this means that my cost of product will be higher in that sense. But then that's just how we communicate and how we do it. It's nothing to be discussed. And also from the market perspective, I will give them the price. They will see it's higher. I will give them the why it's higher, and this is how it goes. Like it's kind of normal daily business, I would say, to have those interaction with each of the departments. Where we see that we had a change was mostly on the research projects. So the type of research project for innovation changed when 10 years, 20 years ago, developments were more about having more performance. Like for the anchoring topics, we wanted to have more kilonewton, more approvals, more fire resistance data, all those things. This is where we were focusing on. Where the past 10 years now is really a lot of research projects now have shifted to how do we produce it better, different? How do we change the material of the production without degrading or putting at risk then the user? Because what we are doing is, fastening and protection. So if our fire protection equipment in the building doesn't work as intended, then we have problems long term. So there's all those requirements that technically the product has to work. This is with a certain requirement, and that we also want to check at possibilities to lead. So it's really for us a way to be differentiated and lead the market by having solutions that are fitting with our customers while helping them to reduce their to hit their targets as well. So it's really a strategy, a core strategy, basically, to go that direction.
It sounds incredible, and like you've taken some great strides forward there, Laura. Thank you so much. Conscious we've just got a few minutes left, so Sophie, would love to get your thoughts on what Laura's just been discussing, any best practice advice, and then any final thoughts to share with the group.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, coming back to the data. So for the whole process that Laura already discussed, it is necessary that the different stages and departments are working on the same data truth. What I have seen in my past, at least in my business past, is that that didn't always work well, like that overlapping of the different departments, and they are using different data. And then in the worst case, that's not now for the product cycle, but for in the worst case, the two reports going out, the sustainability report and the financial reporting, have other values in there just because the data truth was not the same. That's something which is really important, I think, to keep in mind, right? Because that can rack up any efforts that you have. You can work as clean and as good as possible. If you're working with different data, everything is like racked up, basically. And I also see so that I think that is one of the most important things to check. And also what Laura said, that the research, what I think what we will see in future in general is that the focus from cost savings will shift a bit to having more than one one indicator to actually evaluate your business, like CSRD, CSDDD. They are all going in that direction, right? And I think we can see that trickle down to the product itself as well, where you will have to evaluate not just based on like the things which are already standard, but also on like supply chain and stuff like that. And all that will mean that you have to work together closely. That might actually really also mean a shift in some companies in how the structure is looking like, so to enable that better, right? And I think that that's one of the biggest things we will see in the next few years coming, that shift in how we actually evaluate the things we produce and do. Yeah.
Wow, well, watch this space. A lot ahead, and so much incredible insight shared from all of you today. I'm so grateful for getting stuck in and getting your teeth into this conversation. I hope you've really enjoyed it and gained some value from it too. We are just about out of time. Going to make sure you're all on to your next meetings on time, or hopefully finishing for the day for some of you. What's happening? What's happening next? The team at Synergy are going to be in touch with you guys over the next couple of days just to get your feedback on the session and provide any further information that you would like, and connect you up with any conversations you'd like to continue. For now, though, from me, it's goodbye. Thank you so much for joining the team here at Synergy and Makersite for this event. It's been lovely having you. See you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, everyone.